Today we're looking at a demo I am mixing, and I'll run you through how I mix demos. I apply a very broad brush type of approach where I'm not looking to sort out loads of little problems, I'm just looking to get a general feel for how I think the song should sound. The artist that I recorded this with is a local guy, very talented. We sat down in an afternoon and recorded four tunes. We did 2 or 3 takes of each, and this is the last tune that I've got to mix. So I thought it would be useful for you guys to see it. So my process for mixing demos is very much the same for how I mix a final recording of a tune. So I will go through and check phase, and I'll adjust the low ends. I will do a rough balance, then I'll do it in a pan. Then I'll do all of my channel routing and bring in all of my effects channels from my master template and my buses and things like that. And then I will look at the heavy lifting of the stuff that I want to do. So EQ, compression, sorting out any issues within the tracks themselves, and then I'll look at adding the effects on and just doing those final polishing touches. So today I'm going to go through the whole thing with you. It's a very simple tune. So this particular time we recorded the vocals with an Aston Spirit because it suited his voice better than anything else that I had at the time, because he's got quite a deep voice. Then we recorded a harmonica solo, which is also done on the Aston Spirit. Then I had 3 mics on his acoustic guitar. I had an Aston Stealth, a Lewitt LCT 140 with the high pass engaged and the air button engaged. Excuse me, just to give you that high-end lift. And then I also had a Slate ML2, which I was going to do use the modelling Mixrack software, but it's actually turned out to be something that I'm going to just use as recorded. And then I had a river mic set up in the room. I used a Fame VRM12, I believe. So let's get mixing. So my first job is to check the phase and the low end. So I'm going to check the phase first, and I'm going to check the phase of the first guitar against the vocal. So we're going to select this vocal area, and I'm just going to listen to these 2 tracks against each other, and then just flip the phase, or the polarity even, flip the polarity.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain.
That's fine. Then we'll add this one and do the same.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right.
Hear the difference in the low end when I was flipping the polarity.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain. 'Cause I know that I'm gonna be leaving you again. I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right.
So I'm happy that the phase is fine with those. You could hear, the polarity as I was flipping the polarity going through. You could hear that it was having quite destructive effects on the other tracks. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo each track, and then I'm going to just adjust the low end and carve out everything that's not affecting the main part of the track. So we'll do the vocal first.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain. 'Cause I know that I'm gonna be leaving you again.
So for the vocal, I've taken out a bit more than I would normally, only by sort of 20 hertz. But what I want to do is try and maintain the low end of the guitar. I don't want the vocal to sit at the bottom end of the frequency spectrum and then the guitar sit above it. I want the guitar to sit around the vocal. So I want a little bit of the low end from the guitar around the bottom end of the vocal. So I want that rumble, not a rumble, but that tight, nice low end. So I'm going to do the same for these tracks. I'll do the harmonica next, actually, because that's next in the queue. So I'll have a listen to the bit of the harmonica. Cool. So we'll leave that at 275. Just because it's where it's pitched, I can take quite a lot away. And then we'll go to the guitar tracks. Cool, so they're done now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to commit those. And then that's those decisions made. So then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to do a rough balance and a pan. So let's... Right, they're committed. all done. So what I'm going to do now is a rough mix. So we're going to have a listen from the beginning.
Couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain. 'Cause I know.
Cool, I'm happy with that. I'm going to have a listen to the vocal against the harmonica and against the guitar just so I can set that level.
Any pain. I'm leaving you again.
Cool. The only thing I want to check now is the panning of the guitars. It may be that I can work some cool little magic, just giving it a bit of width, or we stick to it all being straight down the middle. So we'll just pick another section. And the reason I pick different sections is so I can actually hear lots of bits of the song. I've listened to it quite a bit just to get my head around exactly what I want to do, but this allows me to sort of keep in touch with the rest of the track.
It seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know it seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know it seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know it seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know it seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time.
Cool. So I think it sounds really nice with the guitars, even though they're all on the same, all the mics are pointing at the same guitar at the same take. They're all positioned slightly differently, which gives me the opportunity to pan them. So I've panned them, and we'll see exactly sort of what that does with when we start doing the heavy lifting. It may be that I have to bring them back to the middle, but we'll see. So I quite like the way that sounds at the moment. Now it's time to import all of my routing and do all my bring all my effects and everything in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import session data from my master template, and I want to bring in some buses. So I've done a video on how to recover a Pro Tools crash, and this is exactly the same process. So all I'm doing is I'm clicking down the buses that I want, and then I'll bring in the effects that I want. So the bus I've got is an acoustic guitar bus, a vocal bus, then my print track, which is my master bus, and then I'm bringing in some reverbs. I'm not going to bring any delays into this. I don't think it's quite necessary. So I really like the free Native Instruments Rauam reverb. It's got a weird effect to it. It doesn't sound like a natural reverb, but when it's set pretty low in the mix, it gives sort of a bit of a bright sort of thickness, if you like. Thickness is probably the wrong word, but it's not a shimmer, and it's not like a natural reverb, but low in the mix it sounds really nice. So then I've got a room reverb, and then a vocal plate. We don't need to go mental today with loads of stuff. On a full mix I'll be putting delays, and I probably have 2 or 3 reverb channels on the vocal, but because it's just a short quick demo mix, then it's fine. But the only thing I will bring in, I've got a parallel EQ channel, which the main vocal and the guitars will be sent to, so I can automate that to bring in a little bit more excitement. And the same with the compression. I've got a parallel compression set up, and I've got a widener, so it allows those 3 effects allow you to create a bit more drama in your mix. So you can create sort of the width with the widener, and then you've got some dynamics and some compression, and you can create the dynamics across the track by thickening it up in certain sections. So I'm just going to bring those in, and then I'll just quickly knock the routing through. Right, so these have copied in, and then I will go to my fader window, just because it allows me to move stuff around. Stick the vocal bus there, and then I'm going to stick the harmonica and the room at the end, because in these instances I'm just going to do the mixing in there. I don't need any sends or the effects already set up, because I'm going to treat them sort of independently. So this is my mix bus, so I want to route the channels into the bus, and then the buses will already be routed to the master bus. Now I'm going to route these 2 to my print, my master bus, and then I'll just talk you through my master bus. So my master bus has a channel strip on there at the moment, which I'm going to set to Neve actually. So it's just a Slate virtual mix rack, and this is just an input channel, so it sounds like it's going through an analog desk. Then I've got the FG Grey, which is a SSL bus compressor. Then I've got it going through a stereo Pultec EQ clone, and then I've got it going through a virtual tape machine. This doesn't add any sort of noise, it just adds a bit of saturation. It's quite a clean plug-in. I just like the way it sounds. Then on my buses, they are all routed to my effects. My effects I'm gonna mute for the moment, because I don't want to hear them. I only want to start affecting my my buses. So you'll see that I've got no plugins or no effects set up in the bus. I like to, at the moment anyway, I like to essentially start from scratch. Once I've got I've worked with this client a bit more, I will end up setting up his own effects, just for how he sounds and how he likes his voice to sound. But for the moment, we're just going to go from scratch. So we're going to start with the vocal, because in this instance it's the most important. So I'm going to just stick in a virtual mix rack. And I want to put I'm going to put in a Neve preamp, then EQ, then oh, where's it gone? I think it's there. LA2A, and then I'm going to stick an air on the end because he sounds really nice with an air. We're going to turn that off at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the compressor and the air off so I can just work on the preamp and the EQ. Once I'm happy with that, I'll sort the compression out, and then I'll add the finishing touches with the top end boost from the air. So if we just we'll pick this section next to work on, but then we'll have a listen all the way through.
How can you hurt someone? How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done?
Right, I'm happy with that. There's a boost at 3.2, a boost at about a K, and then a slight boost at 91. Now we're going to look at the compression.
How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? How can you hurt someone?
Right, you can really hear that pulling on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to daisy chain a couple of these. Stick another one in there. And I'm going to have a little bit, just knocking the edges off, and then I'm going to compress with the other one. So dual compression is really useful because it doesn't sound like you're sucking everything out of the vocal.
How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong? How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain?
Right, we'll listen to another section of the tune just to see how that sounds. But you can see the first compressor's just taking the dramatic dynamics out. And then the second one is just compressing the overall signal. It's just quite a neat little trick. But we'll have a listen to this section, see how it sounds.
It seems the higher you climb, The further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know.
Great, so we're just going to add the air on now.
It seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time.
Cool, so I'm happy with that, and now we're going to look at the guitars overall. What I'm going to do is I'm going to treat them individually with a mix rack, very much the same way I've done the vocal, very quickly, just go through, and then I'm going to go through and do a similar thing on the mix bus, just to on the acoustic guitar bus, just to bring it all together. So I've just picked the way that I want to route those things, and I'm just going to copy it across the channels. And that means I can just go in very quickly and just tweak those things that I want to tweak. I'm going to pick this bit because it's got a bit more of the dynamics in it. So we've got the soft playing and the more aggressive playing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the affected ones over, and that gives me a starting point for the other three. Decided I quite like the sound. The sound between the different mics doesn't vary a huge amount, but it just allows me to get a starting point. Right, let's listen to all of that together. Just those three tracks, just see how we get on. It's always good to listen in context.
The further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again. You look up with those big blue eyes, say that I'm telling lies. The truth is it would be hard to explain, 'cause I know that.
Right, so I just want to send these through.
The further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain, 'cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never...
Cool. So, for my money, the vocal's not as loud as it could be, but when we start bringing in those other effects, I think we're going to be looking pretty good. So, next job, I want to run everything to the room reverb. So I'm going to unmute the room reverb, and then we're going to have a look. Just pull that. For this track, I think we need a bit more. Have a look. So I'm going to send the vocal to the room reverb as well. So stick that in.
The further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain.
I think we'll pull that back.
'Cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain?
Just want a touch from the vocal because we're going to be running it through a plate, but I just want to try and homogenize everything. So I'm probably just going to send just a touch less, and I want to reduce the size of that reverb.
The further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain.
Cool, so that sounds nice. Now, what have we got going to the Rawam? We've only got the guitars going to the Rawam, so we'll chuck that in for now.
The further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know I'm leaving you again.
Do you see what I mean about that? bright thickness. Obviously my routing wasn't set up properly for the input on that, which is fine, I've caught it. But we're going to just have a listen to that, see what it does. So for that reverb, because it's got quite a long tail on it, and I've just increased the decay ever so slightly, I want it to add almost an unconscious amount of reverb. So let's unsolo those. And now I want to send the room into the room reverb, just to give it something.
The further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know the further you fall every time, I just couldn't get the past out of my brain. 'Cause I know I'm leaving you again.
Right, so the vocal was just clipping a little bit, and so I've pushed it more from the Vox bus, which is actually pushing it into those reverbs a little bit more. So I'm just going to pull those back just to compensate.
'Cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong? You never called.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a very slight amount of compression on the main vocal just to stop it clipping, because the more I bring it down, the more I've got to push it through the mix rack, and I don't want to do it because I like the way it sounds.
'Cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain?
Cool. So I'm just going to do the same with the mix rack. I'm just going to pull those gains back ever so slightly. Oh, not on that one.
'Cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again.
Cool. And I've also just brought back the Rawam send. Rawam. I keep saying Rawam like it's Mawam, but it's not. So we're going to just have a look at the vocal plate now. The way that this works is that the compressor, there's a compressor at the beginning which has a key input from this send here. So what I'm doing is I'm sending the vocal bus to the plate, but I'm also creating another send which I'm sending to the side chain of that plate channel, which means that it ducks the vocal going in, but when that compressor releases you still get the bloom of the reverb, so it means the vocal isn't very saturated but you still get the plate reverb effect. It's really nice, works really well. So I'm just going to key that in, and it is on vocal plate sidechain because it's a double channel. This only needs a single. It can't, key inputs can't work off a stereo channel. It doesn't work. So I'm just going to raise that up. I'm going to raise the threshold up, and what we're going to do is we're going to play with the amount of plate that we've got.
It seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain, 'cause I know I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain?
Right. What I might do is send a small amount of the guitar to it as well, which there already is. Cool. So we've got a little bit in there. I think I've brought back that decay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the high end off.
It seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain.
Cool. So I've boosted the lows, boosted the mids, taken away the highs from the vocal plate. Now what I want to do is play with the parallel compression, parallel EQ and the widener. So I'm going to have a play with the widener first because I don't think it's necessarily going to work in this situation, but we're going to have a play. So got the widener volume right up, and then the acoustic guitar, we'll stick that up to 0, and what we'll do is we'll solo the guitars. Cool, so I want that to be an effect. I think it might be nice over the whole tune. So it might be something that I add on the main acoustic bus, but I want to just have a quick play with the widener in terms of over the whole tune. So I'm gonna just gonna automate it in, I think. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move it up below the acoustic bus, so I can see what's going on, and then I'll move it back in a bit, and then we'll automate the width, probably when he's singing.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk. I know that I'm leaving you again.
Cool. I like the way that does that. Now I'm going to do exactly the same to the vocal compressor and the reverb. So I've got loads set up here. My sort of go-to at the moment is another preamp channel, a LA2A, and then a thickener. So I'm going to do the same for the comp channel, which I'm going to move stick it there, and then we're gonna just latch those on. You can see that the parallel compression that I've got running, I'll pull that down, also goes into the vocal plate, the Rowan Airy and the Room reverb. So you sort of, with that extra denseness you get with the parallel compression, you also get a bit more reverb off the back of it because it's where it's sending it to. Actually, what we're going to do is find a starting level because I'm only parallel compressing the vocals.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk. I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain. 'Cause I know.
You can hear that it sounds a lot more compressed. So I'm going to have a little bit in for the moment, and then I'm looking at this section here, the front end of this, and the front end of this to have that sort of boost. We'll see how it sounds.
I couldn't get to sleep last night. Something wasn't right. Had to take a walk out in the rain. 'Cause I know that I'm leaving you again.
Cool. I just want to go through this bit again. I just want to see how it sounds.
How can you hurt someone? How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain?
Cool. So I'm happy with how that works. One thing that's starting to happen, which I quite like, is the vocals becoming quite saturated, which is really nice. But what it is doing, it does mean that the guitar is starting to separate. So I'm going to stick a mix rack on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through. I'll probably run it through one of these EQs. And what I might do is I might stick it through a distressor, and then bang a revival on it, which is just it adds a nice sort of saturation. So we'll just chuck those up, and then a bit more shimmer. But what I might do is, because of that, I know how these sort of react, so I'm going to turn down these because it's going to start getting a bit clicky. So if we just have a listen to that, drive those.
How can you hurt someone who never done you wrong, who never caused you any pain? I'm leaving you again. How can you hurt someone?
So now I'm driving those quite hard, which is nice. I want to do something similar to the harmonica. So I was just going to pull that straight across, but because I was an idiot, you can't go from 2 channels to 1 channel. So, well, stereo to mono, if you like. So what I really want to do with this is I want to stick it through a distressor. Not a distressor, I want to stick it through an 1176 because I think it will sound nice. But I don't want to do that much compression. I'm just looking for the sound. And then I'm going to stick it through a revival. And then what I'm going to have to do then is the last job is to have a look at the mix bus. So I've sort of finished the mixing part of this. I'm going to have one listen, and then I am going to come back to it tomorrow and see if there's anything that I want to change. But we'll be really close to having this done. So let's have a look at the harmonica. So for this, I want to drive it really hard. A lot of harmonicas sound great through knackered old bullet mics and through really small amps that are cranked. So I'm going to drive this really hard, and then I'm going to thicken up the mids a little bit, and then I'm going to just take just the tops off with the 1176, but push it quite hard through the revival, which will saturate it even more. Great. So, just going to have a look at the mix bus, see what that's doing.
You look up with those big blue eyes.
I think there's a little bit too much plate. I really like the way that sounds. I might not add in any parallel EQ. Don't think it needs it. But we'll just have a listen to these sections here. I've just seen that channel there. We'll just stick it in and we'll see what happens. So it'll be around these sort of sections here. So I'll have a listen to that.
It seems the higher you climb, the further you fall every time. I just couldn't get the past out of my brain, 'cause I know I'm leaving you again.
So it's thickening the guitars up more in the middle, but what I might do is... Cool, actually I quite like that, so I might just have it in a little bit lower. Take a little bit of that level away. And it's nice, I quite like that. It's added more volume, but it's added a bit more sparkle. The way that I run that is it's just an SSL channel strip with a small boost around 5, small boost around 8, and then a small boost around 750. And that's it. Excuse me, there's no compression or anything in there. It's just running it through that channel strip as an EQ. and then that sends it also out ever so slightly to the RAW. So I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to give it a final listen, but thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe all around here, and there should be a button up here as well. Thank you very much for watching my demo mix, and I hope you learned something. See you later. So it's the evening. I've been through and listened to the track again. I've made a few little tweaks ready for the final listen. The only tweaks I've made is that I've reduced the plate ever so slightly, and I've reduced the level of the harmonica. Everything else is stuck as is. Am I making any other changes? No. Oh, I added fades, chopped the very beginning off, added a fade to the end just to clean it up. That's it. I've done nothing since what you've just watched, so that's great. And now it's time to stick it in on the iPhone, listen through the stock iPhone headphones, and then we're ready to go. Hopefully it can be sent off tomorrow. Lovely. Thank you for watching, and thank you for watching this update and watching all the way through this. Very much appreciated. And see you next time. Cheers.